I think my voice has been off that entire time, hasn't it? Yeah, let's try that again. So let's start with a short period of bell meditation like we normally do. Get into a nice meditation posture wherever you are behind your avatar. And as I ring the Ching bell, just focus on the sound of the bell. Really practice deep listening so you can absorb some Dharma today. You're going to get distracted, happens to all of us. When it does, just gently remind yourself and go back to focusing on the sound of the bell. Do the short pause after the short meditation. Then I'll do the 3 recitations and then on with the talk for today. So I'll give you a moment, get into a nice meditation posture. We begin at the sound of the bell. I go for refuge to the Buddha, the teacher. I go for refuge to the Dhamma, the teaching. I go for refuge to the Sangha, the taught. I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dhamma. I take refuge in the Sangha. I have taken refuge in the Buddha. I have taken refuge in the Dhamma. I have taken refuge in the Sangha. 3 pure precepts. Cease to do harm. Do only good. Do good for others. Bodhisattva vow. However innumerable all beings are, I vow to lead them all. However inexhaustible my delusions are, I vow to extinguish them all. However immeasurable the Dharma teachings are, I vow to master them all. However endless the Buddha's way is, I vow to follow it completely. Swaha. So again, welcome. It's Monday today, and I think there's at least a couple of people here that may recognize this particular talk. We're going to talk about questions and answers. The reason for this is, at the end of every session I say questions or comments. I really like to get questions, but I also know that sometimes we can see what the question is from the comment, right? But questions are really necessary, especially on the path. So I want to talk about that a little bit today. So first I want you just to take a moment and contemplate this statement. Without questions, there would be no progress. So without questions, there would be no progress. As human beings, from birth, we begin to ask questions, right? We ask questions as a way to learn. We ask questions to find out what heck do we need to do. We ask questions of how can I do it? Tell me what to do, but then you got to tell me how to do it. Actually, the very first cry, you know, when the baby gets hit on the butt by the doctor, which is what they say they used to do anyway, that first cry is a question. It's who's here to take care of me? And our final question, as we're about to die, may well be who'll be there to take care of me? Two legitimate questions from birth and death. Well, in between, it is questions. It's questions that drive us to information, that drives us to knowledge, that gives us our skills. And it's questions that determine how we choose to be in life. The majority are silent questions. There's a lot that we just ask ourselves. We do this a lot right in the midst of our experiences, like, why am I doing this? Or what should I do? Or how did I do? We ask ourselves. Well, then there are the questions that we ask of others. And these are the questions that we ask so that our knowledge and our experience can expand even more. Finally, there are the questions we ask of the universe. These are the questions that we ask when we can't find the answers within us, and we can't find the answers within those maybe we can ask. So we ask the universe. That's a bunch of those, why me kind of questions. And in each instance, the question is critically important. Because without the question, there wouldn't be an answer, and there would be no progress. So when we talk about without questions, there would be no progress. You began your progress on the noble path by asking a question. Basically, is it Buddhism? Question mark. So you tried the path. Now you're making progress. And along with that progress along the path, you just got to keep asking questions. When we ask ourselves, am I making a good choice? We must answer that with rigorous self-honesty so that the answer has worth. Am I making a good choice? Well, you have to ask yourself that question both before and maybe after. Say, did I make a good choice? This is how we learn. It's how we progress. In Buddhist practice, there is the Eightfold Path, right? It can be used as a guide to finding the answer of, am I making a good choice? Or did I make a good choice? Referring to it, view and intent and speech and action and livelihood and effort and mindfulness and concentration. Referring to those will help ensure that whatever action we choose is more likely to result in the promotion of human flourishing, happiness, health, and harmony. Those practitioners who have taken the 5 lay precept vows make a choice to undertake the training of wholesome moral and ethical character and to abstain from unwholesome choices. So, am I making a good choice? It's a good question to ask yourself. Did I make a good choice? Another excellent question to ask yourself. But again, they have no value if you don't answer them self-honestly. So, in Buddhism, we have this thing, experiential verification, or experiential verification, if you prefer. And often, the idea of that is, it's things that I do and I practice so that I learn what it is, so that I find out the information, so that I answer my question. That's wonderful. That's a great thing. But experiential verification is also when we ask questions of others, people that we've come to trust or that we've maybe verified their experience and that find out that their answer has value. So we come to find people we can trust. Right? Parents, teachers, mentors, other members of the Sangha, friends, right? We find people that we can trust. So I've never flown an airplane before, but I know somebody that has, so I can get some sort of experience secondhand, if you will. Now, asking questions of the universe, this has been a path to some of the greatest answers in human history. A few examples. Isaac Newton questioned the universe about gravity. Albert Einstein questioned it about the constancy of itself, about the constancy of the universe. And many theologians have questioned the very existence of God. Even MC Hammer, hopefully you guys remember who this is, questioned whether Hammer Time could ever be a big hit. These are questions we ask of the universe. And without a question, no answer would have ever been found. In some instances, questions are asked that can't be fully answered with the knowledge of that time. But we want to continue asking them again and again and again, because eventually that answer will be fully realized. Because that's the nature of questions. Once the question is asked, the answer's out there somewhere, just has to be found. Siddhartha, the historical Buddha, he realized the importance of questions. And in his final talk, the Mahaparinibbana Sutta, he spoke directly to the assembled disciples that were there with him. And he said this, "Thus have I heard." Then the Blessed One addressed the monks. "If even a single monk has any doubt or perplexity concerning the Buddha, Dharma, or Sangha, the path, or the practice, ask. Don't later regret that the teacher was face to face with us, but we didn't bring ourselves to cross-question him in his presence." Unquote. The Blessed One thought this was pretty important, by the way, because he repeated this 2 more times, just one right after the other. And then he said this, quote, "Now, if it's out of respect for the teacher that you don't ask, let a friend inform a friend." Unquote. On the surface, the Buddha was reassuring his assembled disciples that whatever questions they might have, they should ask. Each opportunity might be their final opportunity to ask, and so that they wouldn't suffer regret later, ask now. To cross-question the teacher was not being disrespectful. To not ask at all could lead to suffering, and let's face it, can kind of be seen as a little disrespectful. The awakened one underlined the importance of this statement by repeating it 2 more times. Still, he got no questions from the monks. So the Buddha took that step from revered teacher to fellow human being. Now, if it's out of respect for the teacher that you don't ask, let a friend inform a friend. It was out of fear of showing disrespect that they hesitated to ask, then just view him as a friend. One that was just on the same path, and ask. This is a lesson in skillful means, as well as in the importance of asking questions. Set aside the reactive mind that is the cause of not asking questions out of fear, maybe fear of seeming ignorant or fear of seeming disrespectful. The teacher, like any real friend, will be willing and ready to answer, or at least to help you find that answer. It is a critical part of learning to realize that questions give substance to what we don't know. Think about what you don't know. It's a pretty big category. And realizing what we don't know is a component of keeping a beginner's mind. Don't approach information with the idea that you already know. Instead, approach with the idea that there is always more to learn. You know, the Buddha repeated a lot. That was part of that culture. That was part of how they mnemonically, you know, so they could remember stuff. But hearing the same thing 2 or 3 times can only help us remember it better. It is beneficial to learning that one sets aside what they think they know in order to open the mind to what they don't know. Learning also requires us to recognize the answers we need so that we can practice them and determine their usefulness. You know, sometimes we ask questions and we get an answer, and the answer just really has no value for us. Maybe it's just an off-the-cuff, sarcastic answer, or, you know, just a, let's call it a blank answer, if you will. So you have to be able to discern the value of the answer too. Sometimes the only way to do that is to try it and to see if it works. It is necessary for us to delve through layers of questions about our practice and about our knowledge so that we can find what works. Questions are a path to experiential verification, and questions are a path to wisdom. You know, in the Eightfold Path, that we can make it 9, and you can add in appropriate questions. Engaging with questions and seeking answers should become spontaneous when we sit with the Sangha. The teacher is there to offer the Dharma and has the responsibility to answer questions, though have to be honest here, at times that response may just come in the form of silence. But it may also come in the form of, I don't know. And that's, right, legitimate answers. So the Sangha has the responsibility to themselves and fellow members to question so that all may benefit. The Sangha is there to learn and practice, and must trust that any question will be viewed as a valid question. While the substance of the talk is important, the subsequent questions and the answers are of equal importance. It is through the process of question and answer that ignorance becomes information, and information can become knowledge, and knowledge can become wisdom, and then we can grow some more of that wisdom. But what about answers? Got a question, hope for an answer. Questions are asked so we get those answers. And once you get the answer, then what? Do you accept it blindly and just run with it? Or the Buddha made it clear that a practitioner should verify the usefulness and value of any knowledge. And some might view this as being skeptical, as being untrusting, or even doubtful. But that's not the point at all of experiential verification. There is no belief or disbelief. There's action. There's discernment. There is no mistrust or doubt in the information attained. There is the need to experience whether that particular knowledge has practical value when engaging in wholesome ways with life. Questions and answers. If you consider the questions that you ask yourself, let's take away the questions that you ask others during a normal day. I want you to think about the questions that you ask yourself during the day, during just one 24-hour period, or 16 hours that you're awake at least. So I haven't done this in a while. I'm going to give homework. So here it is. You pick a time that works for you. But in the next, say, 48 hours, I want you to schedule from the time you wake up until the time you go to bed, I want you to think about the questions that you ask yourself. Be mindful of those questions. And be mindful of how comfortable you are in answering yourself's questions. Some questions you'll answer right away. Some questions, you might actually pause before answering yourself. And if you can, I want you to maybe take a piece of paper or maybe use your phone and do a voice record and keep track of the questions that you ask yourself. Just for one period of awake. It's a good practice to see where you are. Because the questions that you ask yourself point to what you think you don't know. Or they point to what you think you need to know. So try that exercise. See how it works for you. And if that works, then you try questions that you get asked externally. And then do the same thing for from one period of, awake to asleep. Do the same thing. Try to keep track of questions that you're asked. It's a great practice for learning just how important questions and answers are, and that oftentimes the question will point to something before the answer even comes. Then that answer might point to something also, or will point to something. So there you go. Homework.